rape. Most of our research has focused on talking to women and learning about their experience of sexual violence. But there has been one study in 2009 by the Medical Research Council where researchers did pose this question to men. There's another study that's currently being conducted in a large township, Diepsloot, in northern Johannesburg. It's known as the Sonke Change Trial, and so far the results have shown that 55% of men that were interviewed admitted to having physically or sexually abused a woman, and most of them, 60.2%, said they had done so more than once. Rape and sexual violence has very little to do with sexual desire. It's an act of violence and a form of power. So there's of course not one single reason why men rape, but there's a strong body of research that shows that there's a very strong link between what happened to you as a child and whether or not you become an abuser. Research shows that boys who were physically, emotionally, or sexually abused as children are far more likely to become abusers. And if a girl had been abused, she's far more likely to become a victim again as an adult. In the Medical Research Council study, half of the men who said they had raped a woman were abused as children or bullied. And in the Diepsloot study, 85% of the men who were interviewed said they had been abused as children. So how many children in South Africa do get abused? Well, the first ever national study where children were interviewed about whether they had been sexually abused or not was released earlier this year in South Africa, and it showed that by the time that a child in South Africa turned 17, 1 out of 3 had been sexually abused. Something that makes a country's children far more likely to be abused is if they grow up in a fatherless society. And our Stats South Africa results show that South Africa is a perfect example of a fatherless society. Only 1 out of 3 children in South Africa grow up in a household where there are 2 parents. The shocking thing about this is that we are in effect breeding a nation of abusers and of victims. What makes men less likely to abuse women? In the Diepsloot study, there were 3 things. Age, if a man was 27 years or older, he was less likely to abuse a woman. Men who had matric were also less likely to abuse women. And men who had jobs, who were employed, were less likely to abuse women. And that points to if a man has a sense of self-worth and feel he contributes to society, he becomes less likely